Welcome to the Wealth and Love Blueprint, where love meets logic and money reveals the truth.
Have you ever found yourself just constantly drawn to people who are all wrong for you? You know the type. Emotionally unavailable, a little chaotic, maybe even kind of toxic. And then when someone kind and stable and genuinely into you comes along, you feel nothing. It is such a frustrating cycle, right? But it turns out it's not just bad luck. It's your brain's wiring. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on your brain's programming and figure out exactly why it's so stubbornly wired to love the wrong people.
You know, there's one piece of advice we hear over and over again when it comes to love. Trust your gut. It's the whole foundation of romanticism, this idea that our feelings are this perfect compass pointing us toward happiness. But what if that is the single worst piece of dating advice you could ever follow? What if your gut isn't leading you to happiness at all? What if it's just leading you straight back into a pattern you desperately need to break?
Okay, so here's the crucial point, the thing you really need to get. The romantic idea promises that your gut leads you to happiness, but the psychological truth, it's a lot darker. Your gut doesn't lead to happiness, it leads to familiarity. We don't actually fall in love with people who care for us in some ideal way. No, we fall for people who care for us in ways that feel familiar, even if that familiarity is totally rooted in pain.
So to really understand why this happens, we've got to go way back, all the way back to the beginning. That type you have, the attractions you feel as an adult that you just can't seem to shake, it's all based on this subconscious love template that got wired into your brain during childhood.
I mean, think about it for a second. For most of us, the first love we ever experienced from our parents or caregivers, it wasn't simple. It was complicated. It was probably all tangled up with their own stresses, their own flaws, their own baggage. It wasn't just pure tenderness and care, it was this whole complex soup of emotions. And this is exactly where the wires get crossed. Our brains start to label some really painful feelings as love. So maybe love wasn't just warmth for you. Maybe it was the feeling of needing to help an adult who is out of control. Or maybe it was the constant anxiety of never knowing if you'd get affection. It could have been the fear of a parent's anger, or even this deep-seated feeling that love is something you have to earn. That becomes your blueprint.
So, how does this childhood blueprint play out in your adult dating life? Well, it leads to that really common, really confusing experience, finding perfectly nice, stable people boring. Or worse, getting the ick. This isn't because you're broken or because they're not attractive. It's a direct result of that love template we were just talking about. When someone is balanced, mature, understanding, and totally reliable, it can feel wrong. Not because it is wrong, but because it feels completely foreign, totally alien to our nervous system. If your system is wired for chaos, calmness feels unsettling. If you believe deep down that love has to be earned, then getting consistent affection for free can feel really unearned, and honestly, even a little suspicious. This quote right here, it completely reframes the whole idea of boring, doesn't it? That feeling of no chemistry or no spark that we all dread. This suggests it might just be our brain's alarm system screaming, "Warning, this person won't make you suffer in that familiar way you're used to." That is a profound and frankly game-changing way to think about it. So let's break down this misinterpretation, this translation error that's happening in your brain. You feel they're boring or they're just not sexy, but what your brain might actually be saying is they don't fit my template for suffering. Or how about this one? You feel like their affection is suspicious. What's really going on? Well, it's conflicting with this deep, ingrained lack of self-worth that tells you love isn't something you just get for free. Now, this kind of programming very often leads people straight into one of the most common and painful relationship dynamics out there. It's a magnetic attraction to misery, and it's known as the anxious avoidant trap. To get it, we need to quickly look at a framework called attachment theory. But really simply, attachment theory just helps us understand our patterns in relationships. And when we don't have a secure foundation for love from childhood, we tend to develop one of two main insecure styles.
Okay, so on one side you have anxious attachment. These folks are terrified of abandonment. They're always looking for reassurance, and they can sometimes come across as clingy or needy. Then on the other side, you have avoidant attachment. Their biggest fear is intimacy, losing their independence or being controlled. They're always seeking space and can seem pretty distant or unavailable. You see where this is going, right?
And here is the truly tragic paradox. These two types, with their completely opposite core fears, are magnetically drawn to each other. The anxious person chases, which of course makes the avoidant person pull away.
That withdrawal then triggers the anxious person's deepest fear of abandonment, which makes them chase even harder. It's this vicious, self-perpetuating cycle that perfectly confirms each person's worst fears about what love is. So is it hopeless? Are we all just doomed to repeat these patterns forever? No, absolutely not. The solution isn't about trying to magically change who you're attracted to. The key, the real way out, is to shift from unconscious instinct to conscious awareness. And this is honestly the most empowering part of all this. You don't have to rewire your brain overnight. That intense spark you feel for the wrong person, it's probably still going to ignite. But you have 100% power over how you respond to it. The real freedom is in the pause you create between that feeling and your action. So what does this new response actually look like? Well, first, just acknowledge the feeling. Don't fight it. Wow, okay, I feel a really intense spark for this person. Second, get curious and try to identify the pattern. What does this feeling remind me of from my childhood? Third, question the feeling itself. Is this the feeling of healthy love, or does it just feel like familiar chaos? And finally, you choose awareness over impulse. You choose to respond with the wisdom of an adult, not the wound of a child.
Ultimately, this whole process is about introspection. It requires you to be brave enough to look at that emotional ball and chain you've been dragging around from your past. It means tracing your current attractions all the way back to the people who first defined what love means to you, and understanding, with a lot of compassion for yourself, what lessons you accidentally learned back then.
So I'll leave you with this one question to really think about. Based on everything we've talked about today, what familiar feeling, whether it's anxiety, the need to rescue someone, or that feeling of being unworthy, what familiar feeling are you ready to stop calling love? Answering that question honestly, that is the first real step toward finding the real thing.
By aligning your heart and your finances, you unlock true growth. Subscribe to Wealth and Love Blueprint,